Feels like it's taken some time, but we finally got to the first convention week.
The Dan Yorke State of Mind program is brought to you in part by Lookout Rhode Island and Takeo Comfort Solutions.
Yeah, it's kind of a stupid thing to say, right? But we've been watching this presidential campaign for such a long time, it feels like. And, you know, we've been pointing toward July. And heck, months ago, there were all sorts of predictions, including my guests' predictions about what July would bring and what the convention might bring. And all that blew up because Donald Trump is still standing, right? Good evening. Nice to have you aboard. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate your viewership last week where we had a little production shut down and revisited some programs from moments past. Tonight, Joe Cammarano is back from Providence College, political science professor, to talk about the convention. And of course, there's a ton of things going on in the world. And instead of trying to catch up on all of them, because they've been many and sometimes tragic, let's just check in on what's going on now. And of course, the first item is tragic. This is this weekend's unbelievable situation. The headlines: Baton Rouge gunman targeting officers, police say. This is now twice in a couple of living weeks. Dallas, now Baton Rouge. Here's the latest.
Mourners in Baton Rouge came together Sunday, hours after the ambush killings of three of the city's finest, including 32-year-old Montrell Jackson, a veteran officer who leaves behind a wife and infant son.
My heart is broken and torn, but I believe that God is still a healer in the midst of what we're going through.
Jackson, along with officers Matthew Gerald and Brad Garafola, were shot and killed Sunday by Gavin Long. The ex-Marine from Kansas City opened fire on the officers who were responding to reports of a man dressed in all black with a gun. This 911 call captures one of the officers' desperate pleas for help.
I'm hit. I'm in front of on the side of the old Floyd Browns by the coal wash.
As part of their investigation, authorities are examining the gunman's social media activity for clues into the attack.
You gotta fight back. That's the only way a bully knows to quit.
Just a week ago, the gunman posted this video under an online alias on YouTube, railing about police violence against African Americans.
If we come together as a family peacefully and talk it out, we can fix our problems.
From the White House Sunday, President Obama said an attack on the police is an attack on all of us.
You know, this is going to be a local solution in every community, because we don't seem to have a national movement figure to actually speak to the very complicated dynamics involved in the tension between police and, I guess, the black community. This is going to be incumbent upon Southern New England to have tremendous local leadership on the ground, and we have some here. And every community is going to have to do this from the bottom up. And so the collective bottom local governance, local leadership. I'm talking about elected governance. I'm talking about mindset governance, making people think clearly through some of these problems, having collaborative discussions, mediation, all of that kind of stuff. It's going to happen community by community. And hopefully this thing starts to calm itself down, because if you're looking for something out of these conventions or the next presidency to help here, it's a tall order. Speaking of the presidency and the tall order and security being an issue, you know, clearly Cleveland is, you know, in the inner city around the arena and the stadium, kind of a ghost town because it takes so long to get there. Headlines, they're very, very concerned about security. And now, of course, the first night's security theme, next headline, is about making America safe again. Here's CBS Preview.
Day one of the Republican National Convention kicks off today.
This is a real opportunity to just control the dialogue, control the narrative, and spend your message.
Today's message is all about national security and immigration, but the overreaching goal throughout the campaign will be to soften Trump's image and introduce vice presidential candidate Mike Pence. Trump told 60 Minutes he selected Pence to help bring Republicans together.
And now they're saying, what a great pick. You see the kind of reaction. He has helped bring the party together.
Many political pundits describe the chemistry between Trump and Pence as awkward, but Senator John Barrasso, who worked with Pence in Congress, says their differences will work well together.
Donald Trump's speeches are, lofty and big picture, but Mike's a guy that can dig into the details and get the job done.
Presidential nominees typically don't appear at a convention until the last day, but Donald Trump isn't your typical candidate. He plans to take the stage tonight to introduce his wife Melania when she speaks.
She came into the country she gained legal status, as the expression goes, and she's a terrific person and a terrific woman. And she is going to, I'll bet she gives a great speech.
The rest of the lineup includes politicians, the star of Duck Dynasty, and former teen heartthrob Scott Baio.
Well, we'll see. Now, listen, you're watching this at 7:30. You haven't seen the big speeches. If you're watching this at midnight, you have seen the big speeches. We tape each afternoon now in the early mid-afternoon, so forgive us for that. Joe Cammarano is here. Nice to see you, my friend.
Great to be back.
Start.
It's a really interesting convention. The Democrats are going to be sort of more the traditional convention of healing, of focusing on big party ideas. The big question here is this going to be the Trump show? And what's going to happen to the Republican message and how much of the platform really matters? And so I have no idea. I'm not making any more predictions about Trump. You know, that way I don't get in trouble.
You're not the only one. There's no sense lamenting it, but we should go back a little bit. You and other pundits thought that this thing would fizzle away, this dynamic would never survive. Why do you think now, in retrospect, it has survived, and this is the TNC in a lot of ways, the Trump National Convention?
Right. There are a number of reasons. The first thing is we went back and we looked at the research that we have and then the numbers we had going through the process, and we were ignoring our own data. The data had Trump at 30, 35%, but nobody else was even halfway there. And so we assumed since he wasn't at 50, he'd never get to 50. We should have looked at our numbers the way we were trained instead of saying, well, this guy is so unqualified as a joke, he comes from outside the system. But there were 16 other people running, and he had more than anybody else. And so I think part of it is that we didn't pay attention to what we actually knew. We let our personal sort of...
We being what? The political science community?
Yeah, political science community, insiders in journalism, insiders in politics. We figured, oh, this is a joke. He's playing checkers. Trump doesn't play chess, he plays checkers.
Well, early on, that's interesting. Early on, at 35, you know, he kept counting that everyone else adds up to a much bigger number.
Mm-hmm.
So what was wrong with your analysis of the numbers early on?
What was wrong with our numbers, with the analysis early on, is the other 65% or 60% was being split up between 5, 6, 7, 10 candidates. And so none of them were able to sustain their campaign. They didn't have the resources or the notoriety of Trump, and they couldn't get the money because they were polling so low. And then Jeb Bush just completely imploded.
And they didn't collaborate.
That's right. They didn't collaborate. You know, this is a free agent system. They look in the mirror. They say, hey, I can be president. They run. If there were 3 candidates running against Trump, Trump wouldn't have gotten the nomination.
At the beginning?
At the beginning.
Okay.
If it was Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, and Donald Trump, odds are Bush would have gotten it. Christie may have gotten it, but I doubt it.
All right, before we get to the convention and the things, you know, politics of the day, we've had a tough week. Dallas, Baton Rouge, throw Turkey in the middle of the whole situation. It makes one think and look at Donald Trump with a really even more discerning, both of the candidates, no doubt, but I look at Trump and think, how does he actually understand what happened in Turkey? Mm-hmm. What is he going to offer that hasn't been offered in terms of police relations in the country?
Yeah, my initial reaction with Turkey was, well, normally the military coup is sort of a Western-friendly coup. It's not clear what this was. It wasn't the normal coup in Turkey. There's been several.
We like the military.
Trump.
Right. America and the Turkish military are kind of in lockstep on a secular basis. But what part of that military actually is responsible for the coup? I can't figure that out.
We can't figure it out either. And there's been so many changes. And I was thinking like you that, you know, Donald Trump doesn't do details. He does what he thinks is the big picture. He thinks he can delegate. He might be able to delegate. But, you know, this Turkey is far more serious than we know. Erdogan, even though he's democratically elected, is becoming increasingly authoritarian. Maybe Trump knows the authoritarian mind. He knows Putin's mind pretty well. Erdogan's becoming increasingly authoritarian. So maybe Trump will know how to deal with dictators like that or authoritarians who are elected.
Are you being sarcastic?
No, actually, I'm being very serious. Because if anyone who's heard me before, Trump has those same authoritarian tendencies. It's a very fragile ego combined with an outsized ego. That's the authoritarian personality. He's kind of like Buddy Cianci was in some ways, where he had to be the center of everything. So he kind of gets Erdogan, but he'll work with Erdogan in a way that might undermine our principles elsewhere. Because authoritarians know how to deal with authoritarians, but they don't know how to deal with anyone else.
Not to make this a complete international conversation, but I don't know where Erdogan's going, other than what seemingly is a more authoritarian approach, a much more Islamist flavored regime in a country that has been traditionally, in its long history, secular in its mindset. It's kind of set itself aside in that region that way. A military that wants to see that, reportedly, but what part of the military actually spit up on here, I have no idea. Right. Of course, once you have a false start, that's not a good thing either, right, for the military. Right. If in fact there was more inertia for that coup, they're in trouble now.
I have two Turkish colleagues who I believe both were over there. I know one was, I think the other was too, when this happened. Maybe you can talk to them, because it's a very, very complex thing, and Erdogan is less a friend of Europe than he used to be.
The politics here, though, with that over there.
I think your instinct's right. I think initially Trump is in trouble in part if Turkey really blows up, or if things in the world blow up.
Because the Secretary of State, former, will be she'll at least know the ropes.
Right, and until she ran for president, Hillary Clinton's positives far outweighed the negative. It's only been in the past year that her negatives have sort of crossed over into being greater than her positives. And when she was Secretary of State, she was extremely popular. So you're right, I think she has a lot more tempered experience. But I don't know if that's going to happen, because Baton Rouge comes in, it's the second time that police were ambushed. I guess that's the next step. We killed 20 kids by letting this crazy teenager, get an assault rifle in Connecticut. Now that they're killing cops, maybe the other side will start thinking about reasonable ways of dealing with this. But I think Trump gets the domestic revenge. The law and order people. That, when you're targeting cops, law and order people are saying that's wrong. I mean, targeting children, we focus on the Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. They're innocent, and we don't want to see it happen, but what can we do? Well, but now they're targeting cops. These are people who are supposed to protect us. Those sort of law and order types in the electorate, as well as leadership, are going to have to start paying attention to how these crazy people are getting these guns and what they're doing with them. Now, these last two things, they've both been trained by the U.S. Defense Department.
Right.
And they use their training to do this. This is scary. And I think it might actually bring a coalition together. I don't know if Trump can do it, but I think it'll help him politically with his base.
All right, when we come back, this Governor Pence choice. Let's hear things about that. Stay with us. Leslie Stahl trying to peck away at these two guys. Half her questions were inane. But there were a couple of moments in that CBS interview where I have to tell you, I'm looking at Mike Pence, who is so respected in Washington with, half a dozen congressional terms, the first term elected governor. Had a fight on his hands for re-election, but they all do. A pretty statured guy. To me, he looked like a 1950s subordinate housewife. I was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I got home late and only read the transcripts, but I had a very similar reaction. Look, Pence was the best choice Trump had, given the potential pool. He was the furthest away from Trump dispositionally. He does create gravitas. He has connections to big money, and he is policy-oriented. He's been a governor. So it was a good selection for Trump. Why Pence did it, I really don't know. Because I think it's a lose for him. That I guess he can't be smeared too much unless he's on the stage with Trump all the time, and Trump is talking, and he's
Trump
standing
did
there.
say something interesting. He said he asked him to the dance. Trump asked Pence. So he says.
Well, Trump is always going to take credit for everything. I've only read a bunch of reports, and it's mixed. There's a rumor that Trump's kids convinced him after Trump was sort of stranded, and he had breakfast with the kids. Christie actually called him when he found out he wasn't getting it and tried to get him to reconsider.
Right.
Because Christie is deeply, deeply wounded by this. And so, you know, Trump says that, but, you know, 2/3 of what Trump says is 100% false. I mean, that's what the research is showing.
Well, I will say this, based on all the reporting, and I think the reporting has been credible on, this was actually a very dysfunctional rollout of an announcement for Mike Pence in some ways. Being on Saturday doesn't bother me. Romney did that with Ryan. But the idea that he first of all, he pushed it back based on what happened in Turkey. I don't buy that for New York second. I think he was still in trouble with this decision. All the way up until Thursday night, before he announced formally Friday morning on Twitter, he was saying, I'm not really done yet. And he already advised Pence to head to New York. So the family seems to be his nuclear kitchen cabinet. Yeah. And I don't know if America really pays attention to that. I'm wondering how adverse that could be for the campaign, that all of a sudden we're trusting the whole doggone shooting match to the Trump family?
And the son-in-law.
Kids?
Yeah. Well,
and the son-in-law had a problem with Christie.
Well, because his dad's in jail because of Christie.
Right. I mean,
or went to jail. Yeah, I know. Look,
it's a very strange
This
thing.
is the Trump way. All of your viewers who are thinking of voting for Donald Trump need to understand that it's all about Donald Trump and the Trump name and the Trump family. They're going to do what's in their interest, and as I said earlier, they play checkers, not chess. They play what's right in front of them, and they sort of move depending on how things are going, and they'll do whatever they have to. I think what happened with Trump was he took his kid's advice against his own gut, and then Christie got upset, and was like, well, maybe I can back out of this and put Christie. Christie would have been a horrible pick because he's too much like Trump. He's way too much like Trump.
He's also got a favorability rating in his own state right now around 20%.
Yeah.
So
that's right.
And the George Washington Bridge thing is
and
still
Newt
hanging over him.
Newt Gingrich would have been worse than Christie. So Pence really was the best pick. But I think Trump doesn't like the idea of him having to sort of not tell people no. I don't know if you ever watched The Apprentice. I did, just out of curiosity for a few seasons. And he wasn't really good at firing people, particularly as he got to the better people. And remember that one year where one guy got picked, but then he decided he wanted to sort of have two people do it together, and he offered it, and the guy said no, and he did it anyway. Donald Trump doesn't like to fire people, contrary to popular belief. And he had a hard time with this, and that's not good.
I'm just sitting here reflecting on the idea that a respected political scientist, professor at PC, is actually doing apprentice analysis to try to determine the actual credible decision-making process that perhaps our next president of the United States is going through.
Yeah,
it's not a reflection on you.
I feel horrible about that.
This
I think our
conversation
system is in trouble.
Weird.
Yeah, I think our system's in trouble. I think people don't take their citizenship responsibility seriously, and so they take politics the way they take entertainment.
Oh,
Politics
Ronald Reagan was an actor.
And
Ronald Reagan was an actor.
No, Ronald Reagan was indeed an actor. But
was the
Ronald
governor
Reagan
of
is the one who
California.
built this, nearly $20 trillion debt. He's the guy who got it started. Reagan may have done some things people love, but Reagan really screwed up the long-term prospects for our budget. And so, an actor screwed it up. George W. Bush didn't have a whole lot of experience, and he was anti his father. Look what happened with him. He got us into 2 wars. He went from being surplus to debt. Come on, that's the state of politics, and that's the danger.
All right. Well, what we can expect from the convention this week, the next few days, and next week too. Stay with us. All right. So again, if you're seeing this at midnight, you've seen some of the convention. If you follow it, and if it's 7:30, the primetime stuff is about to come. Take a look here as to what the lineup is on the Republican side. Melania tonight. The Lieutenant General is a powerhouse guy, and he doesn't buy the President's Act too much. And there you have it. The top line is the premier. Of course, Donald Jr. will be the headliner. Hello. on Tuesday night. And then what else you got? Keep rolling. And then Eric is there, and Newt's coming, and of course the new vice presidential nominee. And then it finishes with Ivanka and Donald. Good Lordy Lou. Now contrast that to the Democrats. Joe was saying it's a much more traditional thing. Yep, powerhouse politics, incumbent politics, former politics related to the nominee, the 1-2 ticket that we live with now, and of course the daughter introduces the mom. That lineup is wholly more dun-dun-dun, traditional. What do you think at the end of this? And I'd like to have you back in the middle of it if you would.
Sure.
What's your prediction? I know predictions have been weird.
I'll prognosticate a little.
Versus this weird convention and the traditional convention. Forget the ideologies.
Well,
if you can follow the ideologies.
Sure. I think we'll have to see. By tonight, you'll know. But I think there actually might be an interesting twist. Melania is probably on tonight's thing, not just because of her looks, although I'm sure for Trump it's because of her looks, but because that's what he tends to obsess on that. But I think what she's going to be doing is saying, I'm an immigrant who did it the right way. And so it's going to be trying to reframe the immigration debate, and you're going to hear him talk less about, deporting 11 million people, building a 40-foot wall, 50-foot wall, making Mexico pay for it, and more sort of, look, I'm trying to be reasonable. Here's the way to do it right, and that's what I want. I think the same is true with Flynn. He's going to contrast Benghazi, but I do think Baton Rouge, because they play checkers, is going to take a much greater role tonight. And that the law and order, kind of that Nixon campaign from 1968, where he used law and order instead of like hippies and protests as sort of the frame, that's going to sort of emerge tonight probably as a dominant.
Well, next week it's going to be pretty traditional.
Yeah, next week's going to be very efficient, well-oiled, probably lower ratings, and my guess is it'll get less attention. But
the halo effect, they'll be the last ones, and so that's always an advantage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And remember, Hillary Clinton had high approval ratings for several years, all of her time as Secretary of State. Their goal is to get that back, or at least change the trajectory of the lines, that it's crossed into negative. It's to go back to a 50-50.
You think Trump will help or hurt himself this week?
I don't want to predict. I think Donald Trump will probably hurt himself in the long run, but help himself in the short run.
All right. Hillary, by the way, has bounced back to a 5-point lead. So,
and she's winning
the
most
tough
of
hearings with the
battlegrounds.
Republicans hurt her temporarily, but it doesn't seem to stick.
And that goes back to we're going to try to hurt her, but there's really no long-range plan other than attack her as a liar, attack her as a liar, attack her as a politician. And I think there needs to be a long-range plan, and that's where Trump's weakness is. He didn't have it.
Come on back. Thanks, kiddo.
Okay.
By the way, there was a little golf this weekend. Did you see it? Amidst Baton Rouge and all of the politics, the British Open yesterday, if you're a sports fan of any kind, you had to take a look at this. I mean, this was incredible. Henrik Stenson is a machine. Phil Mickelson, by all rights, should be the Open champion. However, he ran into a hurricane, a guy that was just automatic. Phil played the best last round he ever had and didn't win. Just goes to show you. It's always something. All right. We'll see you on the radio tomorrow at 3. Thanks for watching. Bye.